Here we are. It's 33 today, March 30th, 33. I just so happen to be 33 years old. They say Jesus died at 33. They say there's 33 vertebrae in your spinal column. They say there's 33 teeth in your mouth, I've heard as well. You can let me know if that's true. And so 33 is a sacred number. Jesus was a sacred character. You don't need to believe in Jesus to try and understand what this character represented. So the fact that you can hit Jesus and Jesus is like, yeah, hit me again, really, you're the one who's going to suffer in the end. The person hitting you, they're going to be punished. They're going to suffer the consequence of their actions. Whereas if I hit you back, then I am equally bad, and I'm going to suffer the consequence of my actions as well. And so we're only responsible for our actions, right? That's what Jesus was saying. And if everyone could live the way that this character Jesus did, whether or not they were a real person, that we would have heaven on earth essentially. If everyone could respect each other and avoid abusing each other at such a level, then we wouldn't have many of the problems we have on this earth. And so maybe you've heard of Rastafarians, the religion in Jamaica, where they use cannabis and they really believe in Jesus. They're all about Jesus and cannabis. And why is that? I'll put a link to a documentary called Cannabis in the description below, where cannabis historians, that's right, we live on such a diverse earth that there are people who are historians specifically focused in the history of cannabis, ganja. And so these historians have revised various religious texts, and they found out that in the Bible there was a plant that was very important. In the first translations, it's been translated, modified so many times, this religious book. And so there was a plant that was called cannabis. But to disconnect the people from the truth of this story, that it appears that Jesus was using cannabis to heal people, they didn't give any importance to this plant. They were like, oh no, this, I don't know if it was on purpose or if they got confused, the people translating it, but in the end they translated it not to cannabis but to another plant that is insignificant medicinally. And so the story goes that Jesus was making cannabis infusions in olive oil with myrrh and cinnamon, where myrrh and cinnamon have properties that they open up the skin so that it can receive the infused oil. And so the story is that Jesus would go up to people who were, mentally ill and say, you're about to feel the Spirit of God, and pour a little bit of this oil on their head. And so there was something like a kilo of cannabis in this oil. It was incredibly potent, right? And so this goes on your head with the myrrh and the cinnamon. It opens up the blood vessels and it goes directly into your brain. And so if you suffered from some kind of mental illness or whatever, the medicinal effects of cannabis are going straight to your brain, straight to your nervous system in the most potent form possible. And so this is how it would have been used. It wouldn't have been smoked. I think they also said that this oil was burned on the altar to give off the fumes, right? But it was not smoked, as far as I understand. And so with blind people, they say Jesus would put this cannabis infuse olive oil in their eyes, and all of a sudden, because cannabis is neurogenerative, it wakes up the nervous system. So the dead nerves in your eyes, all of a sudden, whatever's left starts growing again. And could we cure the blind? Maybe. Did Jesus cure the blind like this? Is this how it actually went down? The story goes on to the point where they say that when Jesus was on the cross and they cut him, that in the story they gave him like a drink of vinegar or something like this, right? But the historians say that the vinegar would have had a very would have woke him up, basically, right? He would have reacted like, oh. But when he took the drink, he was like down. And so the historians propose that this drink was actually a potent cannabis extract. And so tests that they do in our day and age on dogs, where they give them a very potent extract of cannabis orally, they eat it or they drink it, dogs go into a coma essentially for a week, where it appears that they're dead. Their heart barely beats, they barely breathe, but they're still breathing a little bit. They're still alive. And then the dog comes out of this coma like a week later, their cannabis coma, and they're totally fine. And so this is how they explain the resurrection of Christ, that he was given this cannabis extract on the cross so that the blood flow slowed down, so that he didn't bleed out from the cut. It allowed him to heal over a period of 3 days where he was in this coma. And after the third day, it appeared he was dead, but he wasn't. He was in a cannabis coma. And then he came out of the tomb after 3 days like nothing really happened. And so this is the story of Rastafarianism, why there's a whole country of people, and more than that, right? There's people around the earth that are Rastafarian that don't live in Jamaica. This is how they perceive the story of Jesus.